Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And today I want to talk about sport performance anxiety and look at it as a process, perhaps a different perspective from what you've heard before. And I'm kind of hoping that what I'm going to present to you is something that's going to be helpful and useful, something that you can implement immediately if you are feeling anxious, if you're feeling not sure, and even if you're feeling less than confident. So, if we look at anxiety as a process, what does that exactly mean? Well, a process has steps. You do one step, then another, to another, to another. And generally, processes are part of a strategy. So in other words, what are the steps you are taking to become anxious or to have anxiety? What is it that you're starting to predict that's less than positive, that's going to be a failure? What are the steps that you are taking before a game, during a practice? Those types of things, or thinking of the future. What is your strategy? What is the process that you're doing? So, if we look at it from a process, from a strategy, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? What do you see, hear, or feel inside or outside of you? Then, what is it that you see or hear inside of or outside of you? What do you feel? And then what is the response to that as to how you feel? So, for example, if it's going, I'm going to use hockey. So, Bobby Orr over here. So let's say, for example, I'm playing hockey and I've got to go in the corner. And all of a sudden, my strategy is, oh no, there's going to be another player there. I see that player. I feel that they're going to hit me hard. So I get scared. So what do? I don't go into the corner. That is your strategy. That is your process. That is what happens. What if we change the process in the mind? Maybe the thought is the puck's in the corner. There's another player there that's going to go there. And I'm faster than that player. So I'll get into the corner quicker. I'll make my play quicker. And as a result, I'm going to go right into that corner as compared to before, where I was going into that corner with fear, thinking I was going to get hit. I have a different outcome. So you change your strategy, you change it in your mind first, and then you act on it. So perhaps before every game, what you start to do is you focus on the process of what you need to do. You focus on all the practicing that you've done. You focus on the environments that you've been in before, the situations, and you focus on those successful outcomes and you take that with you. So what you're doing, and you do that over and over and over again, so that when you go into the game, it is going to be more natural for you to make that big dash into the corner to get that puck and to pass it out, as compared to thinking you're going to get hit. Maybe you're going to get hurt and you're not going to be able to play anymore. You're changing your thought process. And when you start to do this visualization, imagery, whatever you want to call it, over and over and over again, and you just think of, what do I want that's different than being hit? I don't want to be hit. So what do you want? You want to get in there and you want to get into the corner. You want to get the puck and you want to pass it out. And that is the key, because if we look again at anxiety as a process, we can always change the process. We can change the strategy. We can change what we do. We think it step by step of what we need to do, because that's the process. And then we act on that of what we know. We act on that process, going quick into the corner and the pass out. So if you have that thing they call performance anxiety, ask yourself a couple of questions. What do you want that would be different from that? What way do I need to think that's going to be different than that? and then put in your mind the outcome that you want and see yourself going through the processes to get that result, and do that over and over and over and over again. And what will happen as you continue to think that way and you go and play your game, things will be different for you. So it's really important to remember from what I'm saying today is that if we think of anxiety as a process, you can change that process. You can change that process. And sometimes you need guidance for that. But remember, if anxiety is a process and you are thinking of a less than positive outcome, change the way you see moving yourself into the future. See a different result. Focus on that different result. Focus on the steps that you need to take to get that different result. And if you do this on a continuous basis, gradually you will notice there will be a change in the way that you play, that you notice, your teammates notice, and the teams that you play against will notice. Again, we think of anxiety as a process. We can break it down, figure out the strategy of how you get into that position, and then change the strategy, change the process. Well, this is Mike Grafstein, and I want to thank you for listening to Mike Grafstein Hypnosis and today's subject of sport performance anxiety is a process. Have yourself a great morning, afternoon, and evening, and see you again next time. Bye for now.